Joe, thanks for regaling us a little bit here to get started.
I love the word regalia. Oh wait, regale? Is regale? I like words, but I sometimes get confused.
Mostly on podcasts, you regale. And then there's a regatta. I think is a fleet of podcasts on boats.
Oh, I thought you were talking about cheese. Regatta. I was on the Jersey Shore. We had a regatta slice on the shore. Ooh.
This is going to be an inter-county podcast. A lot of podcasts are international, like intercontinental. This is just inter-county in that we'll speak rural, we'll speak cosmopolitan city. We got everything here.
Yeah.
Going to talk about a few things before our two-person musical intro, which I'm psyched about. First going to be having to do with color, improving color selection. I've been doing some painting recently. I've chosen the wrong color a few times.
I'm happy to help.
I could really use your expertise in that. Going to be talking about starting the world's most luxurious dog toy company, a ridiculous business venture. I'm not saying this is even going to happen, but I, of course, want your full attention and expertise on the matter as well.
Let me see. Hopefully you have some pro forma documents, a prospectus. You come prepared. You know.
At least. I just have blueprints of a factory I'm going to build. The other thing. No, I don't.
Very cool.
And the final thing, we have, the thing I've been thinking lately that I need to move a little bit slower and smoother to get more done in life. Taking things down in terms of the speed, but actually getting more done. In the end, I hope you're down. Hope you're excited for it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Nice. But first things first here.
Too early.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, like butter. No, that was nice. I always love an opportunity to play a little.
I'm very happy to get you on there. I do have a few categories too to keep true to that. I don't know if we were doing this last time you were on the pod solo.
It was pretty free form.
It was pretty free form, and we did great.
Yeah.
And we'll have more time to be free form, so don't worry. It's not going to be all.
It was So I'm curious to see last time I see we were at we started off think about Miles Davis. He had to put in all the organization, really playing the formal stuff before he could get to Bitches Brew. We were there. We started there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think it was the heroin. I'm not sure. I think it was because we were doing heroin before that episode. But maybe it's the categories. I'm not sure. I only got 5 for you, and we'll try to do them quick.
Sure.
Just tell me the first thing that comes to mind, sort of like a prompt, sort of like a free associative. Sunscreen.
I think there's a Me Too coming for the Coppertone baby.
We solved QAnon on the last podcast with Austin. Do you remember? We talked about the Coppertone baby.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
I'm sorry. As a callback. Sunscreen.
No, we did. We figured out if they just get rid of the Coppertone baby being sexually exploited for their sunscreen profit motive, the QAnon would likely dissolve.
And that's, again, I think what it is, though, I'm bringing this up more as a evidence of new conspiracy where they're actually wiping our minds. So this last year, I think there's a trauma response where it's suppressing memory. So you don't really know what happened in the last 2 years. So they're leveraging our own protective nature of our, neurology.
It's true.
So I don't even know what I had for breakfast this morning.
Well, according to your theory, I'm sure you're keeping the things that matter, right? Or that empower us. True. So maybe we didn't come up with an empowering solution last time. That was the problem. We need to find a way to solidify it in our mental models here. Second one we have, favorite bean.
Recently, I've been getting into miso paste.
Excellent.
Okay. So it's just, it's get that. Well, I was meaning to talk to you a little bit about my transitioning to vegan. I've done this. I would call myself a recreational vegan. I was doing that before it was legal. But now it's, recreationally legal. No, but seriously, it's interesting. I've done it before. I've converted my dad to veganism. I dropped off.
Did you start with the miso paste? I think that's more of a week 4 thing, isn't it?
Right, exactly. Well, it's just amazing.
You start with cashew cheese, I think is week 1.
I call it nut cheese, but sorry. It is a little graphic, but it's not for everyone.
Well, you're going to start a new brand of veganism, right? It can be rougher edged.
Yeah. Like I said, it's more of freegans, you've heard of them.
Shavana lived as a freegan for a year, actually, when she lived in Copenhagen.
That's pretty legit.
In Denmark, she did the whole dumpster diving thing. Freeganism, you want to explain it?
Yeah, it's basically you'll eat anything as long as it's free, right?
Right. You try to contribute to the production. Dumpster diving is usually involved. Contacting organizations to find food waste, being proactive about your consumption.
I think that there's parts of that. Like that's like kind of how I was in college. You know, you could always find like free burrito if you sign up for this raffle, or, you know, it usually involved like a religious organization, like free iPad, you know, if you come, and then you give them your like dorm number, and then they come every week and say like, have you thought about converting to Zoroastrianism?
Yeah, right. I think one of those new M1 MacBook Pros would be the only thing getting me into Christ. I think it would take even beyond an iPad.
Do you think it comes loaded with all the like, you know, censoring software?
With my God.
Yeah.
With my God, it certainly does.
Yeah.
Just finding out if you're putting out good media content.
That's true.
That's what it would be.
Like every time to his word, you know.
You go to make a post in Photoshop and it doesn't meet the rule of 2/3, it automatically gets thrown in the recycling bin.
Like the filtering and censoring it's more like they can filter and like your aesthetic. Like
I'm gonna start a cult, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Where you're not allowed to put out bad art.
I like that.
So
I mean,
we can work on this throughout the episode too.
We can talk about like the usage of I think a lot of people could learn a lot from that.
But are you flirting with veganism right now? So this bean thing that really hits home. I didn't even know. This is just it's just because Bean worked with Sunscreen is really what it was.
Is that? Yeah, you're like I want Joe to think I prepared these notes. I'm just going off of rhyming of the first thing. Yeah. No, I use miso paste as sunscreen. No, it adds that little extra umami, right? Like I've used like nutritional yeast before, but like for example, I like this book. It's called Eat to Live. It's this Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and I've tried a lot of different like guidances, but this one is more of a. It focuses on the protective nature of particularly greens, like just consuming them in the raw form, or like large salads, like eating a pound of it a day, like has these incredible like macro protective effects. But by focusing on like trying to incorporate like a pound of leafy greens per day, you're going to rearrange your whole diet, as opposed to focusing on
so much mass, right?
And because you're getting an exorbitant amount of nutrients in that batch. But it's not the most open form of veganism, but there's also some really cool stuff. A really awesome YouTuber called Avant-Garde Vegan, who does some really like gourmet, really like almost artistic like renditions of traditional food, but also just he was the one who kind of converted me to like, okay, there's a fine art to like figuring out what is satisfying about a meal or a taste, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the flavor, it's not just the fat, it's like texture, consistency.
Oh, yeah.
Have I talked to you about my schema for all foods across culture?
You brought it up a little bit last time. We went through them.
Yeah. There was just somebody was asking a question.
Squish, crunch.
Yeah. So there's like, there's, mush,
it's texture-based,
slop,
right?
Yeah.
It's a texture-based categorization.
There was a question about a slushy, right? Like, what is a slushy? Is it a mush? Is it a slop?
Right.
Like I'd say Italian ice, that's more of a mush, right? But a slushy, like we decided, is a crispy wet slop, if you're interested. Anyway.
Favorite bean, miso. Okay, and then we got to talk about veganism some more. I'm sure it'll come up. I probably have another food
I don't look like a vegan. But I was looking at a picture of myself on here. I feel like I've thinned out a little bit.
I think you're looking good. And then everyone will be provided with ample photographic and video evidence to see
the before and after. Yeah.
We were recording those ones in the yard like around this time last year. It was hot outside. It was a similar time. Doing this at the end of August, so everyone passed. Hope you don't mind our slight sunburn and whatnot. Let me give you the next prompt.
Sure.
Would you rather make money selling liquor or cigarettes?
Well,
or an all meat carnivorous diet.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
No, but liquor,
fermented meat. Yeah. I do think selling liquor, right, would be a more lavish lifestyle, I think.
There's a certain ambiance that goes with selling liquor.
But like, for example, though, are we talking about like a combo liquor store / bar, like on Chicago Avenue?
I was thinking stock ownership.
Oh.
That you are quietly wealthy from the sale of liquor.
Oh, so this is a financial, liquor. If you're talking about like...
Would you rather make your millions, let's say, on the back of a liquor empire, or some sort of Philip Morris based empire.
I think liquor is a little bit more
socially acceptable.
Yeah, even though I've had my struggles with nicotine, you know, what I think is that liquor and booze, like, I think it's a drug, and I'm opposed to it. I think it should be banned. No, I'm kidding. Because as a stock owner, I could make even more profits making it illicit. You see what I'm saying? So black market.
Well, technically, yeah. If you knew the outcome of the company, you knew it was going to happen,
right.
You could maybe invest in private prisons, and then you can lobby for certain laws to be passed.
Well, and that's why I left teaching, is because I saw such a great opportunity in the school to prison pipeline. No, I'm kidding. It's getting dark.
I'll ask you that one next time. Okay, give us a longevity tip. It's hilarious. You already brought up veganism, but I have on here. So maybe I was channeling something. I could tell you were thinking about your longevity. You already gave us the eat 1 pound of greens. That's a pretty good longevity tip.
Yeah.
What's another longevity tip? And I only have one more after this. Okay. We can go off.
Well, I'll say this. I think it's more of a... I'm surprised there's not a bigger... this is actually serious. A big impact. Since you last saw me, I found out I had sleep apnea.
Oh, really?
So I got one of these nifty CPAP machines.
Great.
But I did the sleep study. I was waking up 30 times per hour.
Oh, Lord.
Right? So, like, and that's basically...
It's got to be 29 times too many, maybe.
I know. Well,
arguably 30.
The normal range is about 5 times per hour, like up to 5. But, like, what I was saying, though, is it's a fascinating condition, because I don't think that, unless you've, like, know someone personally who has it, but what's interesting about it, I think is important for people our age, is because if you catch it by, you know, like your mid-30s, it doesn't have any of the cumulative effects, because every time you're stopping breathing in the night, you're putting stress on your heart, your brain, right? Lower oxygen levels, your kidneys. It also affects like all those functions. But let's just say it's a no-brainer. I get the best sleep ever, you know?
I'm happy to hear that. I'm very happy to hear that. And some people, they don't always work with the CPAP, right? So yours is a CPAP situation?
Yeah, I think there's quite a range. But again, if you have health coverage, which we can't assume, right? But the thing is I was able to get access to it. And I thought it was for old people. But I guess at 33, I'm like, hey, you know what? Time to start taking responsibility.
No, I need to do some of the same. I mentioned moving slower and thinking more intentionally and long-term type stuff.
Some of that's not in your control. Like, I'm just moving slower. It's 95 degrees outside, you know, and starting to speak with a drawl. Sorry.
Well, dang, you got to see. So longevity tip, check out the CPAP world if you could have apnea. How did you know you had sleep apnea? What was like the hint? Something was going on.
I think it's just... well, back in high school, like there were kids who'd be like, yo, man, what'd you do before you got to school? I'm like, man, I woke up partially. Like, I'm tired, dude. You know? I was like, I got pegged as a stoner before I ever, you know, even knew what weed was, you know? And I think it was frustrating for a time, but I don't know if that was directly that. It might have just been being a teenager. But I will say that energy levels started dropping off, and it's not always related to like weight gain, although that was an issue for me over the pandemic. But what is interesting is like there's certain variations common occurring, like structural components to like the esophagus, that this muscle basically deactivates at night, right? And it closes involuntarily. So there's actually some real other treatments where they'll put almost like a pacemaker, and it'll literally electronically stimulate this muscle to keep your airways open. That's a relatively new treatment for people who don't do the other, you know, the CPAP.
It's unreal how many people are silently suffering with that, right? And don't know. And yeah.
Well, because the symptoms could be depression, anxiety, right? Like, it's cumulative.
I just ran into a neighbor, and he was talking about how he got COVID last November. So it's been many, many months now. And he had developed sleep apnea just from that.
Yeah.
And was having a hard time sleeping. Obviously, he hadn't regained his smell yet. And he was sort of like battling back. So
yeah, it's important.
Can't take anything for granted. Okay, I got one more here. Fashion trend is my last prompt for you.
You're always coming to me with the fashion advice.
Well, you got to go to the well for water. So.
Okay. Well, I think what it was is I had tried I don't know if I've debuted the mustache on here yet. I think I might. I can't remember. But the thing is, I tried it out as more of like a novelty. I'm like, I got hair really long now. Never done that before.
The old mask surprise with the mustache.
Yeah. But the thing is like I had the beard for like, I just got lazy. I didn't want to shave. But went to New York. Mustaches are where it's at. Like,
It's happening?
I think so. I mean, the hip crowd, it might just be, it's like a little touch. And I think it's, part of it is like the beard like starts to get stale, Like,
oh, yeah.
You gotta, I'm in my 30s. Like I'm going to get really, I already have big glasses, but I'm thinking of like shop teacher glasses. Like,
Some big boys.
with some transition lenses that don't ever really lighten up. And then I'll see if I can get them like pre-yellowed with cigarette smoke or something, and it'll be a nice touch.
I like it. You could try that out. That or you need some sort of heavy glaze for sure. Yeah, you could put some amber, maybe some old honey on those lenses.
I like it.
Like the different techniques people use to weather baseball gloves, right?
Oh, exactly.
Let's do the color selection thing first.
Okay.
We don't have to hit all these topics too in depth, but I do want to take advantage of your color knowledge.
Yes.
Number one, do you feel like you have strong opinions on color? Our artists can care about different things, meaning, composition, right? I don't know if this is even one of the areas you particularly care about. How do you feel about palettes and tones and whatnot?
I have been nerding out on this actually.
Nice.
But it's also because first of all, my early career in art, or even just as a kid, I always thought it was about like, approaching everything like a kid. Like you want excitement, you want, you want high energy.
I think that's one of my problems.
Right.
I think, yeah.
And so
a little too juvenile in terms of the thought process.
Well, it's like skater aesthetic, right? Okay, like you can put like a CMYK, like these are full saturation colors on a shirt and sell it at Kohl's and be like, yeah, I want that. That's dope. And like I've had that. I enjoy it. I think there's just a lot more thought that goes into pulling stuff off like that successfully, but I've been really fascinated with like the science behind a lot of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I'm sure you talk about like color gamut on a display or, the sensors in the camera, so there's this feasible range of colors you can do of the visible light spectrum. But like, so let's say paint, right? There are these chemical pigments, right? And they can only, like, let's say you have like pure blue, like ultramarine blue out of the tube and pure cadmium yellow out of the tube. Okay. So the thing is like, if you wanted to make the blue lighter, okay, how would you do that?
Can you only use the blue and the yellow, or could I use like just white
to
like pale it down?
Well, see, that's the thing is, right, you make the value lighter, right, but you lose the chroma or saturation in photo terms. So, but the thing is like, if you were to take a photo of a blob of blue, ultramarine blue paint and a blob of yellow paint, right, which one of those in the black and white photo is going to appear lighter, closer to white or dark?
The yellow.
Right. So like this native value, like color behavior, like thing is like, if you were to go really dark with a yellow, it's just really strange that you're fighting that. You're never going to get purer than this one particular thing. But even stranger than that is that our perception of the purity of a color is based on the context or the saturation or chroma level around it. So a pure color surrounded by a gray or a neutral is going to appear much more vibrant than it would, if it was surrounded by other vibrant colors.
So this is why hipsters only wear black clothing, because then their personalities actually seem like they have vibrance. Does this work across?
I think what that strategy is called overcompensation. It's like you want me to be impressed with what little is there, right? So no, I'm kidding.
But I'm trying to think. Canvas, a lot of times you're starting with white. Even this garage, we have kind of a monochrome thing going on. It makes sense. You want things to actually stand out, especially if you're working to put new things in the foreground consistently. I was kind of asking. I was mainly asking this with paint because I do think it's important to consider, right, if it's going to go on a screen, because obviously that'll translate the color in a different way.
Sure.
Actually, recently I had super old televisions, like one of those old, like large, fat, like Sonys, like, but maybe like a. Anyway, one of the CRT, I think, is the technology type televisions, the cathode ray tube TVs, compared to this exact television, and this is like a 40-inch Samsung LCD, maybe from 2010. And actually, the older small Sony CRT old school TV was much, much richer. Like I had the same exact video. It was like this. I was running The Simpsons through, old Simpsons on DVD, and it looked much, much better on the old TV. This looked so pale and so bland and like lifeless. It was pretty amazing to me because you think it would just be newer and nicer.
Right.
But the brightness, like they definitely didn't have the same level of nits or however you would measure the brightness. And it wasn't even the same interpretation of the colors, especially you kept bringing up yellow, that Simpsons skin, it was like totally different.
Right. Yeah.
It was completely, like it had been great. Like the contrast was brought down. And
Well, there's a really fascinating, like I got turned on to this thing through a class I took recently. It's called the Munsell scale, and it talks about a lot of these things, like the limits of a particular pigment, right? So it's a really important science when, you know, the paint companies are trying to register, you know, where this thing, you know, how to produce a consistent thing. So they have, you know, photography is what? Hue, saturation, brightness, or video. A lot of times they use that HSB, but you know, in paint, it's typically saturation is the word they use is chroma, and that intensity of color or purity of color is like an important thing. But value, but even like from a perception standpoint, like let's say you're painting a picture, you know, of this room. For example, what if you could only pick one thing to prioritize is to get 100% accurate light and dark values for the room versus 100% accurate color for the room, like the hues are perfectly matched. What do you think would result in a more believable picture?
A believable photo. I'm trying to think of what that means exactly. I have
like
to say
painting, right?
I have to say the structure over the hues,
right? So
because it's like black and white film or something, right? It's more about the composition than it is the color,
right? And so what's been fascinating...
Our brain can fill in a lot of that, can't it? Like make assumptions and do translations almost real time.
Well, and it's just fascinating to see how, like, for example, if you you could mix an entire painting from, you know, you could say, I'm going to use red, yellow, and, you know, maybe a little bit of black. Okay. But the thing is like, if you mix a composition that way, so everything has a tinge of like a warm red or orange or whatever like that. If you put a gray in there, you'll see it as blue. So like physically it has no blue pigment in it, but our brain completes that triangle and we will perceive the cool color in that. So it's really interesting that like some of it is related to the actual pigments, but there's all these perception games you can play, and that's really what I'm nerding out on within painting.
Maybe in the future I can have segments in this that go corresponding to the visual, and I could have had that like photo of the blue and the yellow, or the orange and the gold dress, or the...
You do a PowerPoint, you know. Happy to.
I'm glad you've been thinking about this specifically with your painting. How does it work with your painting? Do you ever find that you've chosen a project just based off of color? Like, have you ever been inspired enough to take a tone for something? Do you think that you should always try to consider, well, if this is a scene with grass in Virginia, I want to look at like the grass species that's in Virginia. Do you like to source things according to what's like realistic, maybe photorealism?
Yeah.
Do you have sort of rules of thumb? My main problem is I keep painting walls like too dark or too chroma of a color, too intense of a color. Like I need to shade it down.
Right.
And you get so excited in the store, and maybe it looks a certain way under the bright lights of the store, and you get home and everything is like white at home. There's not like a million colors versus the paint section. And so like you were saying, everything is based off of what's near it. Your brain is just totally wired wrong at the store. You almost have to take it home, adjust it to the scene you're going to like paste in, right?
Yeah, well, with trying to paint realistically, like if I'm trying to go photorealistic, the challenge is to break out of the... like actually ask the question, like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Because the thing is like, there are some people that pride themselves on making something look like a photograph, but that's different than making something look as if it appears, right? Because a photograph is a very specific processing method, right? You can see lens distortion, focus, right? Like, and the funny thing is,
you can game it big time,
right? And the other part is like it will shift your depth of field, right? Like the proportions and the things, the perception of space are very specific, but it's a language that we come to identify. So there are some painters post photography that you'll see artifacts for, like, they're translating it into something that you might more readily recognize as something farther away. There's no lens blur in painting, right? But there is what you would call like less resolution, not like pixels, but it's not as resolved.
Yeah.
So like John Singer Sargent, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was like hung out with Monet, but he's an American painter that was in France at the time, and he's the rock star. There's another guy, Anders Zorn. Very limited palette of colors, but like really focused on getting the value scale right. But the thing is the values were so tight that he could describe, like this plant. You might zoom in on the picture and it's just like 4 brush strokes, like sloppy almost.
Yeah.
And there's something satisfying, but from that distance, it looks more than photorealistic because he's taking advantage of that assembly in your head, but he's just giving you like that basic structure to put together.
Yeah, because your goal isn't to paint exactly what's there. It's to paint the thing that's most effective in making you feel what that plant is or how that thing is supposed to make you feel.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also kind of just like, that might be someone's jam, but somebody else might not even be interested in reality of, or they might just be interested like, fuck painting this. I can just take a photo and print it out real nice, right?
Speaking of, I do end up taking a lot of the colors from like the video capture of the scene. So if I'll use something for the artwork in this episode, a lot of times it's from a color of someone's shirt or something that was used. So that kind of has been my process.
Yeah.
Fuck it, I'll just pull a color out of what was theoretically there or what was captured, I guess.
Have you tried like the Adobe Colors feature?
No.
You can load in a photo and they'll pull like a harmonious palette and you can choose like the harmony structure, the value range. And so you could just say, hey, I really like this Pinterest photo of this dope ass house, right? But it'll pull that together and say, oh yeah, I want to use these 5 colors to work from in my InDesign document. It's a really great way to start. Very cool. And you can source from what's trending, what palettes are trending. So it's, I think, thinking in a more structural and production mindset with color, it's a lot of work to do it right.
Yeah.
But the thing is if you take the time to learn the language, it'll pay off in dividends when painting your house or color grading a film, right?
I've been trying to do more color grading. I really wasn't that into that element before because I just had so many other elements of production to focus on.
Yeah.
But I'd like to refine that skill. So the Adobe, like the smart tools, sound like they're going to be nice. That's going to be...
It's like an online
building
tool,
palettes, right?
And then it'll drop into your library and I think you could probably... I don't know how it incorporates into like Premiere, but After Effects, you can do that. But yeah,
I'm going to check it out.
LUTs, I'm sure you know about those, right?
Maybe not.
Okay, a LUT is essentially a preset package that you define. It's like a Instagram filter, but you can apply, it's like a set of color grading constraints to film, but you create that file so you can drag and drop. So once you create the style, it's an asset you can reapply and tweak to keep consistency. So like I've even gone beyond, like when I started working in 3D and like Blender and ZBrush, taking it to an entirely new level where it's not just hue, saturation, brightness, but these are completely like modeled materials, right? So like, have you heard of albedo?
No.
So it's like the inherent reflectiveness of an object. So like, for example, it's used in astronomy a lot. Like a low albedo object would be something that doesn't bounce light back. So it's difficult to detect with like a radar absorbing cloth would be low albedo. So it's all electromagnetic radiation. But so if you're modeling a material in 3D, like that's another feature that they have to account for when they model this light ray bouncing off of it. And there's all these crazy advances in that. It's really cool.
Like the light density of a material, basically, how much of a black hole it is, sort of.
Right.
From black hole to crystalline mirror or something.
I mean, there's so much like.
So that's awesome, because then you much more easily can have a style that everyone recognizes you for, and especially in this era where like videos and photography, any of these media elements are gonna be so easy to create. It's gonna be very helpful to have your yellows be, I guess, a little bit more this, or like a little bit less light absorptive, right? You can just sort of like have that as a skin on a lot of the things you make.
Yeah, I mean, so that's something I've really gotten into, because in the 3D world, that rendering idea, you're in control of all these unique phenomenon of, you know, a couple other words you'll hear is like subsurface scattering, which is one of my favorites. But it's an important thing to think about. Like if you hold like a flashlight up to your finger, right, and you see it like turn red, right, that's subsurface scattering of the light, because it's emitting technically, right? But
it is.
It's not solid, but it actually changes that. So on these materials, okay, though, like you can model that, and it's actually like an emitted light, but it'll take, you know, this model of a sun with a directional thing, like a renderer does, is it literally shoots like pixels or like a ray at this thing, and it records it into a virtual camera across a lens you can select. Right, and it's literally all these lines. That's why it takes so long, is they're calculating the bounces of every light ray in the scene. Yeah. But you can say, okay, ambient occlusion. Okay. So ambient occlusion is a shadow. Okay, like on a sunny day. Okay, like if you're in direct sunlight. Okay, right. Those are basically all parallel light rays. So here's a car on the street and the light's coming straight down, and you can see this clear outline of a shadow on the ground. Okay, but what about on a cloudy day? Will you still see a shadow underneath that car?
Right, if the rays are flying in all these different directions, right? That's why I have like filters on some of the lights in here, because if you're just doing light rays, if you actually have the ability to project light rays with an artificial light or just with direct sunlight, it's a lot of times it's too much. So you need like a paper, or in this case, you're talking about a cloud, to scatter things a little bit, send the rays in different directions.
But
right?
What the ambient occlusion means is that there's no direct rays. It's actually a bunch of scattered ones. Everything else is very like smooth, diffuse lighting, but you're still going to see a shadow underneath the car. And that's a very specific type of shadow, because the thing is that low space, like close to the ground where there's general ambient lighting over here, is statistically improbable to receive any bounces in this scattered array of things. But it's really computationally intense to compute that in a renderer. So like you have to, like, you can incorporate these features. So there's all this whole world of this stuff that I'm really just a newbie in, but it helps you understand, like, if I know about ambient occlusion, I'm painting outside on a sunny day, I can identify that type of shadow, so I can describe it with a paintbrush better, right? I can mix for that color. I know where to look, where I would normally get hung up, right? Or why does this look weird? So if you can identify the phenomenon in the wild by understanding how people are attempting to model that, it's a kind of a cool hack, because it's not just like painting from a photograph. You're applying this general schema of all the phenomenon you've learned about.
Absolutely, much more comprehensive. It's not just adding like more black to the color to make it sort of shadowed. Right. It's bigger than that. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I have a lot to work on.
Well, again,
I got plenty to work on. I'm going to start 3D rendering any wall I'm going to paint also before I actually paint the thing. I'm going to take it one step beyond just like color swatches. But I'm going to use some of these Blender technologies to.
I mean, I was complimenting your kitchen though, right? You have a lot of nice natural light in there. But have you ever tried to take a photo of that? And go ahead.
If like it's too intense, right? You're going to say.
Well, I'm just trying to say is like, and then you compare it to like how it looked in the IKEA magazine, right? Right. And you're like, why does it look so dark? But it's because they do HDR passes. So they used to take many, many passes, and they're moving lights around, and lighting dark corners, but then pulling them out and layering over those lights. So it looks like there's this impossible glow over everything, right?
Right. In the simplest version of that is you take one photo maybe that optimizes for the windows because it needs a certain contrast. You take one for the cabinets and everything else, and you combine those two photos. That's HDR can like stitch things together.
Right. And that was like groundbreaking because it creates this amazing look, but it's costly. You got a really smart person to arrange those shoots, not to mention like ship all this physical furniture, spend all the time mocking it up, before you ever sell one, right? So apparently in the last 2 years or so, IKEA, almost 100% of all those shoots are completely done virtually. They're 3D renders of the entire room, and it's way cheaper because the thing is they can preview and try to like pre-sale these things without ever having to make a physical prototype. It's worth more to them to hire a team of viz artists to do.
That's insanity.
Because it's like, and you thought, I'm a photographer, I'll be safe, like I'm telling you, it's happening fast because the power of these gaming computers, like I got this big tower, it's insane what I can do with this thing, and we haven't even talked about digital sculpting yet. It's my favorite thing. Yeah. Anyway.
No, it's we're getting to that point where the replication or the rendered composition might rival reality in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
This will end up being probably the first in many series of talks we have about the new created world that we'll be creating in the digital space. What's a funny transition? I mean, the world's most luxurious dog toy company. Something in the physical world, something unrendered, probably more machine made or stitched.
Yeah.
I just, people seem to own. The only thing I'm confident in right now is that Americans love their dogs.
It's the
only thing I know for sure about Americans. You think over the years maybe we care about science, we care about forward thinkingness, but we won't even like get vaccinated to save our own lives. So that calls that into question. But right now I'm thinking, what do Americans for sure love without question? That's of course dogs. And Americans love luxury. Americans love the idea that they can do signaling even through Fido's play toy.
So this is more of a status oriented dog brand.
I'm tying it in with America, so
okay.
I am bringing it, and I specifically the world's most luxurious,
so is this
which is just its most expensive,
but is
dog company.
Because this is something I did read a book on selling luxury items, and it was about how like Louis Vuitton. Okay, the thing is like they still have like their premium brand that only the elite can afford. But then they've kind of segmented into like this fast fashion, like luxury light market because they realized that like, oh yeah, why aren't we cashing in on this? Like getting some Louis V, and it's more of a petite bourgeois, new money type phenomenon that would typically exclude that class of people, right?
So with this brand, I think it would have to exclude people from the get-go. I don't think this could be like, this is like, if maybe Kong, that like dog company Kong or Blue Buffalo or one of these equivalent companies, if they went into a luxury line, this would be, we won't even speak to you unless you are of a certain income strata. And then we can't even be associated with any other brands. It has to be, so maybe even won't even be sold in PetSmart or Petco, along with the, let's call it trash that is our competitors. If we were to invent this situation in the moment, which I am doing right now.
So I am curious though, and this might be a product already, but automated, I originally just had this vision of like a pug on a hoverboard. Like, so like, a dog that could walk itself, right? Like, or, it's a robotic dog walker, it's just like, a Segway with a little leash thing. But I mean, like my girlfriend got one of those, dog nanny cam things, right?
Did she?
Yeah. Oh, wait.
The treat one or no?
Not, this one doesn't shoot treats. She got that for me though. No.
Also make the world's most luxurious or expensive treats for boyfriend. Toys for boyfriend.
True. Yeah. I'm a simple man, but, well, actually on those cameras, I do have a story about that, but I don't want to derail, but I see luxurious, like it's the Roomba, but it's integrated, right? Like a dog can go for a walk if it wants to.
So you're really trying to add value to the life of a dog, these rich little canines. See, I'm not interested in adding value at all. I just want to create a socioeconomic game for the owners to play. You're actually trying to make dogs' lives better.
Well, I think
you're taking this genuinely, and you are actually, again, providing value through this extra cost. Me, there would be very little marginal utility gain. This would be a dog toy I pre-purchase, staple a couple golden wings on, and then triple the price of.
I see. Yeah, I think that there could be a service that, I think
like,
it would be like, okay, I want, my dog likes to, I got it, is they sell mid-century modern furniture just for dogs to scratch up. You buy an Eames chair, but it's, it's for a dog to, it's their scratching post. They can shit and piss on it if they want,
Yeah. And then you could like make them select the breed on the website and charge a different amount for each dog. But really there's just two different sizes. Like we make it seem like this is the French Bulldog version, but it's just the small.
Right, exactly. Or you could go to town. Maybe what it is like it's, you can buy like a whole, instead of a dog house, you can buy like a dog apartment, dog Airbnb. Right?
It'd be a dog loft, I guess, for this brand.
A dog loft, yeah. Like
it'd be like 900 square feet of unusable space with like 200 square feet elevated up in the air where you could actually use it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like I am a big proponent of like advocating for like the next step in evolution for dogs to become more autonomous. But I think that's more my liberatory mentality. I don't expect people to agree with that. I think part of having a pet is like dominating this being, I'm kidding.
No, listen, you're talking about possible marketing strategies. Do you want to show that you have mastered life? Master what you are a master of.
Yeah. It's like,
okay. Man's best friend?
Yeah.
Do you not love your best friend?
Yeah.
Do you not want to get a good gift for your best friend?
Yeah. What kind of friend are you? Yeah. It's just like talking down to these people.
Well, no, you have to. You have to treat them like trash because that's the only way they'll want to, I feel like, prove you wrong and buy your horrible press. See, this is the other thing, too, is when you go into business, I feel like with something, I'm just admitting there's no benefit to society necessarily. It's just a signaling thing. You can go in with all these other intentions, right? Like, you don't have to have this be friendly to any cause or to any effort. You can just soak rich folk for their money, and then maybe you can give it to a cause that's righteous afterward, right? But you have that element be totally after. Let's just spitball right off the bat some ideas, okay?
Okay.
So obviously we have the plush dog toys I already mentioned, taking like a teddy bear that exists, stapling some golden wings on that thing. For instance, maybe having a pig. Let's get a pig Beanie Baby, spray it gold, call it the Trumpkin or something, and then like put a red hairstyle on it, like so it's like a golden pig that's like Trump. Combining spectacle and like virality, I guess.
Or like we were talking about Steely Dan, like gold teeth. Like I think you could get a grill for your dog, right? Like I think that actually, right? You get like fangs.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel like if we're answering this correctly, we should be able to Google afterwards to see, like, does this exist?
Probably.
Because the gold teeth for the dog, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, how about like
you can find luxury collars.
What? And this
you can find fancy collars because it's like it's like a leather. It's almost like a jewelry. It kind of is a market that's there already.
Are we at the point of guns for dogs? I know that's not luxury market, but
we should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think every dog should be packing.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the ideal gun though? Do you want to get one where it's cute? So you like have to build, like we have to make guns. We have to make tiny guns for these dogs. Otherwise, it's just the proportions aren't right.
Maybe like
you can't ask a Chihuahua to hold a shotgun even if you tape it upside down on its back. It's just not going to work out.
Right. Or like a Walther PPK might work. A
little Derringer on the ankle or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it would be like how would a dog pull a trigger though? Maybe it's a
mouth.
I see. Actually, you know what? It would be a head. You could do a head-mounted unit or a tail-mounted unit because you know, especially like a machine gun could spray while they're wagging the tail and laughing. Well, anyway.
Okay, we can definitely have smartphone integration. There's no doubt about that. I think they should pull the trigger with their teeth. I think that is something that should happen. I think they say a dog's mouth is like their hand. So you can't expect them to paw a trigger, especially if they need to put some lead into a criminal that's...
I just thought of something. Okay. Kind of on the teeth thing. It's a tooth implant that's actually a Bluetooth speaker.
Okay.
It's a noise canceling barking solution. So the thing is that through biofeedback, it can sense when the dog is about to bark, and it can Bluetooth link to your sound system that will invert the signal and play an inverted sound of the dog barking.
See, I mean, bad dog owners are already a huge problem. If we unleash the power of noise cancellation technology on the fleets of people out there who are bad dog owners, this could actually destroy the world. So this company has already now taken somehow a turn for the darkness.
Yeah.
No, but that's a genius idea, actually.
Well,
you could also market to like the neighbors, right?
Right. Yeah. Hey, my dog's a little shit, but you got
rich people.
Yeah.
Rich people don't take care of their dogs. They're not going to train their dogs.
Right. Well, I'm not. So this is a little bit of a beef. Like I moved into this new building. It's nicer than I've done, you know, in the past. A lot of dogs there. They got a nice little dog run. But the thing is, it's a lot of working professionals. I think there's a lot of people who got dogs during the pandemic and are now like, oh fuck, I don't know how to deal with a dog.
Yeah.
But there's a little area in the like walk-through area, like nice little gravel, you know, oatmeal style place under some trees. But it's a high traffic area filled with dog shit. It's all the same size shit. I never thought that I would do like a shit size analysis, but it's like every day I walk by, oh, there's a new fresh shit. And sometimes they go onto the sidewalk, and I finally was like, hey, this is a nice Yuppie Sky prison. They must have security cameras. I go into I'm like becoming a Karen walking in there being like, hey, just, you know about the shit situation out there, right?
I mean, you guys can see these 8mm coils, right? Am I the only one taking a look at these piles? Is anyone else seeing this? The same size. That one's 9mm, but give me a break.
I mean, like, that might have been a homeless person, but these are all the same dog. And this is every day. Like, and they, like, you'll get a mush in the sidewalk where I walk to go get my coffee in the morning. I'm not the type of guy that, like, number one, like, I don't have a dog. I admitted early on, like, I don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Right.
My girlfriend has a dog. I respect it. I like the dog, but
you haven't killed it.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to say is that.
Have you killed it?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking.
No, it's like what's the Sopranos?
This is my gotcha question. Yeah. Have you murdered a dog?
No, absolutely not.
Would you feel different about those little coils of shit on the way to your coffee if they had gold leaf in them? If they were,
I like that, or golden corn. Yeah.
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 We should go the cheap route. I shouldn't get too
right.
I shouldn't think too crazy here.
Yeah. Well, there was like that article for a while about like the gold covered chicken wings, you know, stuff like that.
Right.
And it's just like, hey,
seems to be moving down in price, so
right,
bigger margin on this.
Exactly. Is this a buy gold podcast? Are you advertised?
I'm closer to gold than Bitcoin, so
okay.
So sure. Especially, let me acquire a stockpile for this luxury dog toy company first, and then it'll be a really pro gold podcast.
And that's the thing is you could call the company Dogpile, right? And the thing is it's actually, you know, a venture capital firm that invests in, you know, just dog-centric luxury goods. I was
going to call it the Wolf of Wall Street, actually.
I like that. I think Dyson should get into the game of a shit vacuum for the dog.
Yeah, how about that? We could also go to companies then, do partnerships, be like, we'll take the panache and prestige of our luxury dog company. We'll partner with the Germans with Dyson, right? Or no, they're British. I think that's a British engineering thing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too is like I'm picturing kind of like a handgun style thing, right? You know, it's got this like little magazine in there, right? And the thing is
this the dog gun or the owner gun?
See, that's what I was gonna say though. Is like it's a protect. You have the dog. That's your primary protection. You know, go out late at night. He shits. You're like, oh no.
Does he have the gun when he's shitting?
Well, yeah. So the owner
the mouth gun?
No, I'm gonna pick up the shit with the. It's like a. it'll suck up the little turds.
But what if you mix up the dog gun with the shit gun, and one is shooting bullets, and the other one's sucking shit?
I think
could that be a problem? You should probably market those differently.
I think though that it has a dual use, because once, like, you could fill up the magazine, you could take that to the range the next day. Hang out with your buddies. Blow shit up.
Well, I mean, like, that's like a level of advancement, like monkeys who can throw their own crap. If dogs can shoot their own shit back at other people, that is sort of like a two birds, one stone type thing. Especially if it's golden shit. Because you'd get a lot of trouble if your dog is projectiling shit at other people. But if it was golden, if those coils were golden, people would have to think a second before yelling at you, because it almost seems like they were getting a prize. Almost seems like someone's shooting a prize at them.
So
if the dog is shitting golden coils, picking them up with a gun, and then firing them back at people subsequently.
Honestly, though, I just thought about this. Like, let's say you're this dog owner who doesn't pick up his own shit.
Theoretically.
Right.
I've heard that could happen. Some people maybe do that.
But I'm trying to say is, like, let's just say he's loaded. Why wouldn't he buy gold to put in the dog's food? So he'd shit gold.
Right. And
so it would actually create a economy around recycling dog shit for people who wanted to pick it up. A pioneering young man, says, I got shit for brains, and that's my business. Or, you're, what do they say? Your number 2 is our number 1, And he takes that to the recycling center, has a shit refinery, takes out the gold. But the thing is like, gold flakes probably don't cost much, do they?
I don't know what it would be if this would be some sort of copper poisoning lawsuit with the dogs, or if it would be gold, or what it would be exactly. There's some sort of metal. We'll have to look at the supply chain issues of the time.
It's fool's gold. Yeah, the suckers.
One more take on it though. You mentioned the dog furniture, which is great, which is amazing. We could also, I'm sure, retrofit or change up the styling on some of those, like, children's cars. Like they sell mini Teslas the kids can cruise around in now, like those things they used to sell at Toys R Us back in the day.
Well,
you could do that for dogs, obviously.
Yeah,
obviously.
Well, the last thing that I was thinking about though is, collective ownership of a dog that's housed off-site. So for example, I could buy a timeshare dog, but like nobody is in true possession. It's almost like a, it would be really like, I was actually concerned about OnlyFans, because they built their, reputation on a certain type of content. I think they reversed decision, but I was gonna pitch, collective, like, it's kind of like a voyeuristic dog ownership. Like, I like other people's dogs. I like watching them. Some of them don't need, like, they're, you know what I mean?
It makes perfect sense with the American equity market and Americans' love for dogs. I think we need to, I would actually personally love to use this then as a way to trick just dog loving people into owning other stocks, owning other equities. Like, maybe you start with an index portfolio of canines and rovers, and then you end up moving to maybe some S&P companies. Like, this is just a way to trick people into doing what's good for them.
Actually, maybe we should talk more offline, because, like, can a dog legally, like, inherit or own something?
No, I don't think so. There's those stories about, like, old lonely rich people trying to leave everything to a poodle.
Right. But I was just curious though, I think it actually might be a way though to monetize your dog. Right? So the thing is you could start writing off all these luxury toys. So I think if we create this industry, create some guidance, benchmark legislation or a lobbying, white paper that we can kind of slip into the dog lobby. So the thing is, we're creating a marketplace where you could incorporate something in the name of your dog. Okay. And the thing is that you could solicit sponsorships. You can buy homes, right? Like, so the thing is like, it's like OnlyFans for dogs. But now the thing is, people tip and buy this stuff.
Paws.
Yeah. And so now this pug is living in this loft with real, mid-century modern furniture, and gets to do whatever the fuck he wants. And you live in the guest house. But the dog is running the show.
We're pretty close to $1 million idea at this point, honestly, especially you combine that technology where it shoots the treats for you. That can be like their tip or whatever.
And the funny thing is
dog's just 3,000 pounds.
I think, but back to our shit gun, I think you could call it, do you like to shoot the shit with your dog? Sorry, I think we're running low on.
I think there's still fertile ground. I mean, we didn't even get into the skin-friendly dog spray paints that you could do temporary colors, I think, and colors with. We can combine this with previous discussions of color.
I thought what you were saying is that Fertile Grounds, it's actually a fertilizer company based on dog shit.
There you go, too. We could also add more additives for the Duke. We could talk more extensively. We could make the shit green so you can't even see it. It's like camouflage shit. Which is good for certain people, and maybe a lot easier than gold, possibly much easier than gold.
Yeah. It's like clandestine dumpers, you know. It's like I don't know.
We'll find something on that. We can move to the and of course we can just round back to these, I don't know, genius dog ideas for the luxury market as we get to them, as we talk about this slow is smooth type thing.
That's not a shit reference, is it? Or...
Well, the best coils are slow and smooth, so that's why maybe this is the logical transition
Slow and
point.
smooth, you're talking about like lifestyle, though.
Just been thinking, getting things done. I mean, I kind of fall victim to this American mentality. You want to do things like quick and intense, right?
I'm with you. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I'm constantly getting myself in trouble with that. One example recently, I felt like I was having some pain in my right hand, and I realized I was playing the drums. And when I would choke the ride cymbal, I didn't want to get fingerprints on it, so I wouldn't put all 4 fingers on top and then choke with my thumb on the bottom. I would like spock it and sort of choke it with my in between my fingers, but I was like hitting the sensitive flesh in between my fingers too much. And I don't think necessarily playing at a level that was worth this amount of self-harm to the body.
Right.
So I was just thinking about that in terms of my drumming, and then I started thinking about doing the construction jobs I've been doing, painting, and even performance on this podcast. I feel like a lot of times things could be improved upon by taking your time and chilling out, and there's the beginner notion to just talk as much and as loud as possible in a podcast because you're not comfortable with silence, even though you probably do need extra time to absorb things.
Sure.
Considering the listener isn't in the room with us and they're not maybe as savvy in absorbing all these mile-a-minute ideas we're throwing out there.
We do go mile a minute, 2 miles a minute.
But the whole, slow is smooth and smooth is fast type thing. Because another example, I was on vacation, I was rowing a rowboat, and when you're actually in a rowboat, you could work like 3 times as hard, like really push against the waves, but you're not going 3 times as fast, right?
Yeah.
You kind of need to go with the flow. It's literally a current that's flowing. So it makes it wildly obvious that your efforts actually are only so good. And it's actually more important to focus on continuing to move in a slight direction, one direction, however slow, versus fast break, which is very American, again.
I'm with you on that. I mean, it's something that just from even like a mental health standpoint, right? Like we haven't even gotten to talking to like the yield, like the quality of your product.
Yes.
But I think there's it's like the pitfall of perfectionism is like you're so focused on this arbitrary, or oftentimes arbitrary standard of perfection that you're pursuing in something. And the only way you can validate the importance of it is by kind of going head over heels for it, because it's such an absurd notion, as opposed to like a more sustainable, like what you're talking about is like, hey, you know what? I'm investing in longevity, to your point earlier. I'm going to take the time to set up. And the problem with that type of stuff, though, is it looks a lot different than how we romanticize like being excellent at something. Like it might mean optimizing your space, spending a day cleaning. So when you do think about, like when you do start, everything will be within arm's reach, right? You're thinking about it, and it usually comes at a stage when you've already done it the other way. And you're like, hey, I love making art, but I am just about to give up because it was so frustrating having to, deal with this paint drying out in the middle of my painting, right? So it's like solving those problems, but knowing that a lot of that stuff happens up front, right? That's the professional distinction for art, but it might just be for life. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of applications for just being like, take your time, do it right the first time, enjoy it. It doesn't have to be right now. Is that what you're kind of focusing
on? Absolutely. You're making me think about different elements of it. How much is a short-term versus long-term mindset, and how you might be able to get a better product or with more ease.
You've been listening to us talk for an hour.
Speaking of ease.
Neverending becoming
We're
holds true
slow,
to
right?
its title. Neverending. Always interesting.
Very fitting time in the conversation to come up. Very fitting time to come. Yeah, I don't know. I think the quality of product is different. Okay, let me just ask you point blank, as someone specific with painting. Let's use that. Obviously, you're a man of many talents, but with painting, do you paint differently if it's slow versus fast? Do you have to go slow to be Rembrandt-like with your brushstrokes, or like you were saying earlier, do you have to be fast, almost like it's sloppy, to actually make it more realistic? Do you feel like there are strategies you can turn on and off? There's something about a sloppy sketch where it almost gets the energy of something more, I feel like, than when you're really slow with the lines.
That's actually a good illustration of this trap, right? Because the thing is you might see that painting in the museum that looks kind of sloppy, but there's something you love about it, right? It's just like, oh man, that looks so effortless, and there's such this great energy to it.
Energy, right?
And it's kind of like listening to Green Day. You're like, simple songs, I could play that, but I love them, but they're so simple. They're kind of like, it's unintellectual or whatever. But the thing is it takes, even to do something that looks effortless, it takes 10 times, 100 times more effort to do that. Whether that's a career of 30, 40 years of just knowing, right, intuitively grasping that, but odds are it's a cascade of processes that were set in advance, or for painting in particular, somebody who laid out the palette, mixed an entire range of values ahead of time, so they could absorb completely into the painting session and not have to look down to mix vast amounts of color, right? So that's something I'm learning, in to adjust my ego to account for that, because I think there's a temptation to be like, yeah, I got the paints, they're right next to the palette, they're still in the tube, I can mix as I go,
right?
But it's never as unified, right? It's more about that discipline of taking the time to make the plan and then decide on it, and then take action to prepare for that very brief moment of action, right? I think we have a temptation to think, just like a movie, you see the movie Limitless, or I want to be like that guy, right? He completes his evolution from loser to super powerful man in under an hour.
Yeah,
I want that.
Bradley Cooper takes a pill and then is now skilled, basically.
Right, yeah. It's competence porn, right? We all fantasize on that, But I think that slowing down is what it takes to even be sober enough, right? Because what I've realized is those moments of intensity are actually very rare, but a lot of times I think we get so addicted to the idea that everything has to be intense all the time that we create stress for ourselves.
And it's performative. It ends up being like part of its own marketing campaign. To accomplish something while you're sweating versus accomplishing something smooth as silk.
I like it. Yeah.
Right? You may actually, in certain situations, maybe you want people to see you sweating a little bit. It almost like cashes the check a little bit more intensely.
I'm with you on that.
One of the other things that was making me think about this too is just something I was reading on skill acquisition. They were, of course, reading things in maybe learning musicianship or something where you're doing highly repetitive practice activities. But they were saying, like, anytime you do something, shoot a shot in basketball, draw a line, play a chord, and you do it incorrectly, anytime you do something wrong, you're wiring and like myelinating that way on your brain. Like, you're practicing fucking up, basically. If you can avoid sloppy moments by moving slower or by only doing everything correctly, you're never practicing doing something wrong. Because whether you're doing something good or something bad, you are just a culmination of the things you continually do. So if you can just lower the number of repetitions of mistakes, you're just like a less mistake-filled person. You have less of those myelinated pathways to travel down in your brain. Like, you only have success as your outcomes because you're more likely to obtain those avenues when you're going at the appropriate speed.
I mean, I think there's something. I see it as like this retreat to like the spiritual. Not to say that that's not a scientific take, but how do we look at the stereotype of like a Zen master, right? Or karate, it's like these very slow, deliberate movements that then take on significance when they're sped up. I think there's something beautiful about it. I think it's something that our culture needed, because I think I've had this conversation again and again with a lot of people who are very impressed by Bo Burnham's special. I'm not sure if you have an opinion or you saw it. I think we maybe briefly talked about it.
I didn't see it last. We talked. I've seen it since. Yeah. What's the?
I think what I'll say is that.
Say it in the camera. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Say it to his face. Say it to Bo's face.
I would say, the consistent themes is people like, don't you respect all the hard work he did? I said, absolutely. It's tough to get off your ass and do something, especially when you're depressed, when it feels hard. Like, I don't discount that. I think it's awesome. Did he capitalize on a moment? And would there be some pangs of jealousy? Be like, wow, he really nailed the timing on this. I think it's great. But I think there's something else that is off-putting about it. And I'm not saying it's bad. I think I've evolved to understand it as like, it is a maturation of the thing he started, right?
Yeah.
It's a apropos, but I think it's less about his particular thing, but I think it says more about, I think it's quite cynical, and I think he knows it, but it's not the type of cynical in the way that he's like singing, like, should we be laughing right now? I think he's missing the point, or if he's not, it's like even darker than we even think, right? It's not about his depression. Like, I think it's a really damning and mean special, right? Like, because I think it's making fun of more of like the trauma performance trend of people legitimately expressing frustration over working conditions, or people legitimately suffering. But then there's a particular class of social media performers that make it into this type of social capital, right? This like kind of thing of like, I've suffered enough, therefore you should trust me. And I think that Bo Burnham is the next person who's just basically being like, don't think my life's pretty. I suffer too. I have depression in my pool house in my backyard,
Yeah.
I can have a millionaire lifestyle and a beautiful girlfriend and this, but I still suffer and I'm with you. I don't see that as solidarity. I see that as kind of like trafficking in some sort of like strange suffering capital.
Just like a simple point system. You mentioned suffer signaling. Everything is virtue signaling. Everything is. I mentioned the class signaling thing that's everywhere in America. Everything really is class. I think everything is tied to money. We always make things about color or some other like side game, but suffer signaling, and he is just showing like, I have permission to be sad too. Or maybe those of us who are seen as successful, working from home, having the ability to work alone or remotely,
right?
To just make money sitting in a room at a screen, even though we're all doing this with, him and the people that watch that content, Netflix affluent subscribers. Yeah, interesting. I haven't heard that take on it. I'm trying to think of the slowness too, like how that ties together, and also just what we gain from that, and maybe like ways in which it sets us up for problems moving forward. Like, anytime something is self-referential or is claiming to call itself out, it ends up being self-serving in a way. It does. Like, I think if you're trusting the audience to see things being ironic or all these other ways, why don't you just trust us to view this that way as well?
Well, it's like, I think it's the way that society moved, in the sense that like, you could watch Colbert, you could watch him one night, you can miss a night and watch him again. He's still telling the same joke he told on Monday, right?
Yeah.
The jokes about Trump, like these, it's like a fatalistic loop that everybody got caught into, where it's like, do we really even have to joke about Republicans, allowing their own constituents to die out of ignorance? Like, I don't think it's funny. I don't know if Bo was really make an authentic gesture, but I think that what I'm more reacting to is the unmitigated praise that it's received as being this brave and authentic expression. I think it represents something much darker, and I don't know if that was the intention of the piece.
Well, there was an era where you were seeing nurses then even getting on TikTok and crying and talking about how rough their job was, and other people in society we hadn't traditionally asked for video monologues from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he's like...
And it's hard... I mean, he was intentionally shooting all of those moments. Me, I do that here. I put the camera on, and then I stand in front of the camera, and you can't ever cut that apart. No matter how systematically desensitized I become to the rolling camera, you still know what you're doing on some level.
Right. And don't get me wrong. Here, I'm talking about my own health issues and my suffering of, sleep apnea, I'm not... But my point is I think it's... I actually think he's in a tough place as somebody who is a performer who also makes conscious jokes about it. I think the self-consciousness, like I think he's Woody Allen, right? You either like it or you don't, right? Like, is it funny that this person is neurotic? I don't know. I just see suffering, right? I see insufferable things. Like, I don't find it impressive. I find it to be this actually, because it's clear that this is actually the real you, I find it less impressive, right? What we appreciate about performers a lot of times is their ability to transcend themselves and the medium, right?
Yeah.
And I'm less interested in him as a person. I feel bad for him if he's truly suffering, but I'm less interested. I don't find it brave because he's the one getting clapped on the back for what people are really saying who are in real positions of trouble. I think he would have done better if he would have said, hey, instead of spending all this time feeling sorry for myself and making a spectacle of my suffering, which is valid, but I'm going to invest in 5 new young filmmakers who are drawing attention to real issues in a truly authentic way. Even if they all suck, you just created 5 new opportunities. Like, he's a bitter person that, in my opinion, needs a career change. He's 30 years old, and he might need to shake things up, right?
He's done it. Yeah. It's very, very performative. You're making me think. Yeah, you're making me think. Because he did grow the hair out, and he was performing negative affirmations. And this is from someone who looked just like him during that same period where you got the big bushy beard.
And we were both making videos and looking the same way, right? Like...
No, but there's something like you have to understand what you're doing to a certain point. You have to be responsible for it. There is a certain narcissism in small complaints. And comedy has this badge where if you're like making fun of yourself, it's supposed to diffuse the annoyance that comes along with the spotlight. You're also shining on yourself. Mm-hmm. But like when you're being self-critical, when you're making jokes about who you are and maybe you're revealing your sadness on camera, it's still self-obsession. There's billions of us. There are billions of us.
Right.
And him like here, we're all in nice spots to be able to have tripods and even ground and an electric account that will feed a couple lights. That's a special place to be. That's a certain form of safety that when recorded in 4K or 6K, obviously may seem less desirable to people.
Yeah.
Depending on how it comes out.
And that's why I think people would really get down with, like, I'd be more interested in what a dog has to say. Like, because the thing is like somebody said to me, is like, oh, but it's like the zeitgeist. He captured it perfectly. I was like, did you need a reminder? Like, I don't really find it impressive. It's like, I found it really it was so convincing, all the suffering I went through. And I didn't find, like, the jokes were the equivalent of the Donald Trump jokes at the end. Like, it wasn't funny anymore, right? Like, I think that's part of it. And maybe I'm getting too deep into this thing, but...
it didn't have a lot of pure funny. It didn't have a lot of just pure funniness in it.
I don't know.
No, there's something to that. I enjoyed the special just, for the quote record or whatever, and I am just interested in doing a lot of those things, setting up a projector behind me and trying to create something that's both like emotional and visual. Got me thinking. I mean, we do live in this cult of personality time where we want a singular voice to be representative of millennials, maybe, or as Americans in the form of Trump. It's funny, we ended up talking about Bo Burnham. I just was actually thinking about, he had a bunch of infographics and whatnot in his special. I was just thinking about like creating a matrix, like the current male role model matrix, and then it's like a 4-panel. So there's 2 parameters. It's alpha and beta on like the x-axis, and the y is either sports or arts. So I'm going to try to explain this to you here, and Bo Burnham does come in on this one. So if you're an alpha and you like sports, that's going to be Trump. That's going to be a certain kind of guy, right? It's the alpha sports. If you're beta sports, that's Joe Rogan in terms of male role models. So if you're alpha for arts, that's The Rock, because I'm viewing as wrestling is basically being like a theatric type thing. If you're beta and into arts, I was trying to think, who is his final square? So we have like alpha sports Trump, beta sports Roganites, Joe Rogan, right? Alpha arts, maybe that's like The Rock, because he's like an actor in movies, and it's like theatrical thing, but he's still very alpha. Beta arts, I had Bo Burnham.
I agree.
Is my 4th male role model.
I
currently.
think it.
American
you're
male role
talking
models.
about the basic matrix here, right? Like it's like
This
kind
is-
of mainstream.
I'm taking some liberties, obviously, like saying like sports, alpha, Trump, whatever. But like,
I agree,
in terms of you brought up the zeitgeist, the magic word, the culture, right?
Right.
In this like male role model matrix, for some reason, Bo is coming up in that 4th spot for me. And
I can't think of enough. He
maybe
is like
part
the
of it.
Dave Matthews of a generation. Like that's the closest thing that like we have to a monocultural icon.
People want to
of the
follow
time.
him. People want to be like him and do the things he does.
Right.
Maybe
like
people look up to him.
because he embodies like I think something that I feel like I missed. Like whereas like when I was teaching, my students were fully on board, right? With like started with Vine, like obviously that's his career ascendancy. But even he's talked about how the algorithms have crushed that pathway, right? It's completely optimized, and maybe you could argue TikTok is their algorithm really puts you out to a different audience, or so you can still grow without paying to play.
Right.
But that's a limited time, right? Because it factors into their business plan. They want hegemony within the market, and once they do, they'll lock it down and make people play. But you saw it with Twitter too, right? They started purging Twitter followers, right? And really taking people off the throne if they weren't generating what they're there to do, which is create ad content. So I'm not trying to say it's bad. It's the game someone like you or I plays, right? You're always fighting it. I think it's just more, I think I was emerging from that place less like neurotic and self-aware. And to see it was like seeing a past self. It's like, you know what? Let's move on.
I did hear a couple people say
activate
say like
this?
you got to watch it soon, otherwise it's too late to watch it. And I do
Right.
wonder how it will age.
I think I'll give it this.
Hard to
It's
go
an
back there.
artifact. But
It's an artifact, it
right?
is.
But I think
And
it's
he
like,
knew that. That's why he wanted it to look that way too. And in the same way, I think I was wanting it to look like that when I was shooting the podcast. Like, let me show my suffering with this big bushy,
Right.
I don't go outside beard.
Yeah.
In a way, I think it's anyway. So maybe he grew the ugly beard for all of us, maybe on some level, and that's also what's annoying about it because we all had the beard. So why are we staring at his beard or whatever, right? So,
But I do think that your matrix is a good idea because I think it does say a lot about how we categorize things and what, as a culture, like our mainstream acceptance. But I don't want to sound. Was it Scorsese who was talking shit about like superhero
it
movies
was
or whatever?
it was.
I mean, I can agree. It's not that I say I'm talking shit. It's like I'm just not into it, right? Like I've seen the movies; they're fun. I think that's part of it. Is like in a culture where it's almost illegal to have fun, right?
It's a misdemeanor at this point.
Because I was joking.
Giddiness is a misdemeanor offense for sure.
Well, because I think what's funny about like weed being legalized, right? Like the thing is like you can basically smoke weed on the street if you want to, but you wouldn't get arrested for that. But you might get arrested for laughing too hard, right? Or just like smiling too much. Like, what's that guy up to? He's a creep. What the you see that guy? He's smiling to himself. He's got sunglasses on, and he doesn't. I can see his mouth. Like he's not wearing a mask. He's outside, right? The blanket of suspicion, I think, is, especially now that it's coming back, not to criticize masks. I think there's just we've removed a lot of visual information and communication interface for us. You can't see emotion. You can't convey sarcasm. You've lost the ability to, work with this amazing interface right here visually. I go to Starbucks. It's loud in there. I can't hear the person talking to me, and I can't read their lips. I didn't realize how much I much I interpret from that.
How much of the environment is built off of nonverbals, and of course, Hot Man Mustache 2021.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be coming for people.
Anyway,
Joe, this was amazing as always. Amazing
this, yeah.
as always. Let's try to keep to the hour 70 minutes that we gave ourselves. Promise me you'll come back again.
Absolutely.
We'll keep breaking down the matrices and models and business ventures.
I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, I was afraid you were going to make a Mr. Anderson Matrix joke, but
next time.
Yeah.
Next time I'm gonna roll.
What,
those.
did we just get blue pilled or red? What are they? I can't keep track of all the pills.
I think there's
have.
black pilling now. That's for nihilism, right? So
I'm grill pilled.
What's that?
You just chill and
grill,
while
baby.
You wait for all the other shit to go around.
Anyway. I will grill pill yourselves at home, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you,
Take
Joe.
it easy,
Take
guys.
care. Bye bye.